Paul Muad'Dib, the Kwisatz Haderach, Paul Atreides. I want to talk about this character a little bit, and I may do videos about other characters to go a bit into length. But Paul I find to be very interesting. I see a lot of people interact with the books, and they see Paul as not a hero. And in some cases, they see him as kind of a villain in terms of his purpose and such. I think what summarizes Paul the best, though, is the references to terrible purpose that comes out a lot. And we even see this with Leto II. But Paul ultimately, I think you can make the argument that while he might not be the classic savior hero, that he does have moments of heroism in how he approaches the mantle of the Kwisatz Haderach. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that right. But he's put on the mantle to be this male Bene Gesserit, right? And it was a generation early. It was against planning. He sees where his mother went against the Bene Gesserit in bringing the Haderach a generation early. But for him, he's put in this huge place of influence. And then as he positions himself and his family to survive and take control away from the Bene Gesserit, he sees the doom of religious fervor on the horizon, right? And so everything he does after he seizes control, well, even in the process of seizing control, he's trying to put off the destructive future that he sees being exercised in his name. So I think in this sense, we see Paul as a very human character. You can say there's gray areas, sure, in some of the decisions he makes and stuff, but it's all in service of putting off the impending doom of the future. So in this, I think we have to be able to attribute some heroic qualities where we can see he rebels against the tyranny of the Bene Gesserit. And I will call it tyranny because essentially the Bene Gesserit represent the eugenicists and record keepers of humanity through genetic memory. And this gives them huge power, and they constantly place themselves as the power behind the throne to call all the shots. And so for him to take the reins and say, you're not going to control me, and then seeing the consequences and trying to cut the losses, so to speak, of the consequences in the future, I think we can respect Paul and appreciate what he tries to do. I don't want to get into spoilers at all, but we do see how he prioritizes saving the future over any of his personal decisions and stuff. You can see that he puts his life on the back burner in terms of quality and just having a basic human existence. Like he kind of sees himself as set aside from being human. And we see this trend continue with Leto II, where the humanity is put off. So you see him making choices in light of all that has been done to him and the mantle that he is put upon or thrusted upon. So I think Paul's a very interesting character in this sense. So I wouldn't go as far as to say, oh, he's just not the hero or he's the villain. I think people are misguided with that. I think, funny enough, as inhuman as he feels, we see him behave very human. We see him trying to save humanity in the best way he can and mitigate the losses of the control and genetic manipulation that the Bene Gesserit had done. So if anything, we can appreciate Paul for taking the control away from this Bene Gesserit, I don't know if you call it a secret society, but this faction. He takes away their control and then tries to make the best decisions he can with the power that he then gains. So very interesting character, and he enriches the series a lot, I think, because we see an individual have huge impact and stuff. So yeah, Paul Atreides is a very interesting character. Not a classic hero by any stretch, but I think we do see heroism in his choices, and we also see him put down other choices that could have gone too far. And spoiler alert, turn off the video now. We see where Leto II does not hold the same reservations as Paul, and Leto II is okay with taking away free agency, I guess you could say. I like the quote in God Emperor of Dune, where Leto the Second is talking about, and what have I taken from them, the people, and they're talking about their uneasiness and knowing something's been stolen from them. And he says, I have taken their right to participate in history. And this phrase here, I think, Leto the Second merits the mantle of the tyrant, whereas Paul never went that far. He never wanted to do what Leto the Second did, but he also didn't get in his way when he came about, because he realized it was out of his control, and he removed himself from the equation because he recognized that if he was in the equation, then things would just go sideways. So very interesting development of events, and I think we can respect that Paul turned down the tyrant mantle of complete control and taking away the choices of man, whereas Leto the Second does not show that discretion. He goes full force. And Leto the Second is his own topic, which I'll probably make a video on at some other point. But yeah, so those are some of my thoughts on the Paul character over the course of the saga. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you guys around.